welcome to Inside Government for the fall 2018 semester here at Key Community College and broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon Fios, and the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as the college's radio station 89.1. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. Now that campaign 2018 is over, we return to our regular program for the rest of November. In the studio today is City Manager Jeff DYGERT. Since his last appearance in the spring, it has been, well, I guess you could say a busy 6 months. Yep. With a number of projects that the city is either finishing up or working on, including the Genesee Street reconstruction project, undertaking major projects such as York Street and the North Division Street Bridge, and decide to undertake a major project at Falcon Park. And by the way, earlier today, he opened up the new Visitors Center in downtown Auburn. We've asked the city manager to come on to discuss all this and more. Welcome back, and congratulations on the center being open today with the Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah, thank you. Didn't think it was 6 months since we were here last time.
Well, it's been roughly that. A little less, but we since spring at least. So. So is the Visitor Center, let's talk about that because that's going to be the front pages of most of the papers, and it's going to lead the news tonight, I would assume, on the Syracuse stations. Is it finished? It
is, for all intents and purposes, it is finished. There's a little punch list of things to go over, some minor things that probably aren't visible or obvious to public and the visitors and things like that, but just a few little things getting finished up.
And the statue was unveiled today from the Cuthberts.
Correct, yep.
So you had them packed in there. Now there's still some work to be done on the street, and that kind of came up this morning. I think somebody mentioned it, but that is something that's not part of the Visitor Center per se, correct?
Correct. The Visitor Center itself, the structure, the contents, that's all up and running, and as you say, the installation of the statue, all that came together as it was planned. Unfortunately, right at the moment, we've got a little bit of work left on Lincoln Street, but shouldn't be more than another week or two before that's finally opened up to two-way traffic again, and we start to get a little bit of more traffic flow like we're used to. And
how about at the top of the T in front of the Y, and specifically I had to go back downtown this afternoon for a meeting, parked in the garage, and need to go up to the Y for a meeting, and I know part of the sidewalks are all tied up in it. Is that all to be completed?
Yep, so as Lincoln Street wraps up, the sidewalks in that area, the crosswalks will get finished up. There's some improvements there, whereas if you're walking to the YMCA and you have to cross the street, instead of crossing 4 lanes like you used to, you'll only cross 2 lanes of traffic, so it'll speed that up, make it a little bit safer. There'll be a 3-way stop there now, so that will improve some safety in that area.
So project on time?
Yes.
Well, no, but I mean,
basically,
for something that was started in February, it's pretty close to being on time.
Yes, within weeks.
Within weeks, but more so cost-wise, it was said, I thought, by the State Park Commissioner this morning that it was under budget.
Correct. Slightly under budget right at the moment. We expect it to stay that way, slightly under budget, and you know, certainly a lot of work that got done in that area.
So the number that was tossed around today, maybe once or twice, was $10 million. That is state money. That is not city share, correct?
Correct. It's state money. That $10 million included the design work and the architectural work. It includes some money for improvements to the parking garage. Some of those improvements have happened already. Some,
I mean, there's big, vibrant, almost the same color as the curtains here, blue signage as you go into the...
So it's hard to mistake where you've got to go now when you come down Lincoln Street. So for visitors and residents alike, it's pretty self-explanatory now. We improved all the signage within the structure. We have some more plans to make the parking garage more attractive and cleaner, but unfortunately with the weather that we've had, we're probably going to have to wait.
And it was also a staging area for a while for the construction crews, correct?
Correct, yep.
So what, in the end, the city's share is the property and some design costs initially?
Correct. There was a couple $100,000 in the beginning to kind of kick
so
things
well
off.
Under $500,000, you would say at this stage. That is separate from what now will be the annualized cost. And I know there's been a lot of figures questioned. Have you figured out as a city what your costs are annually?
We had a preliminary budget that we used to create this year's budget, and of course we're not getting into this. We didn't get into it in July, so it's a portion of a year. But we're figuring around.
But you never expect to be in July. You expected to be in mid-October.
Correct.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's some costs there, although some of the costs are being absorbed by bid, or some of the work's going to get absorbed by bid, and the
so bid and tourism are going to go into the building. You have bid managing for the next 9 months. But do you have an overall, because this is not, the state is not going to pay for operations. Am I correct on that?
Correct. We've got some help for the first year or so of operations.
Senator Helming.
Yeah, we're hoping that will continue on, because it really is, it's more than just about the city of Auburn. There's certainly, you were there and you see that it's about the region. So we're hopeful that the state stays on board and continues to contribute to the ongoing operation.
So I'm still going to try to pin you down. So are you looking at maybe $100,000, $150,000?
We're about $150,000 we're looking at right at the moment.
Per year for that. And I know you have the bid managing for 9 months. Is that just because you needed to get through the first swing of things?
Yeah, to take care of our cycle.
As long as bid does a good job, do you see them doing it the long term?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So Genesee Street, let's go. We're going to go through all your capital projects. Well, maybe not real quickly, but where are you in completing Genesee Street?
Just about wrapping up. Again, kind of a punch list type of thing, and that work included, although it wasn't city work, it included some finish-up work that the utility company did on gas lines in that area, so that they didn't have to tear things back up.
Okay.
Which we appreciate that. So we had gas line work, there was water and sewer work that happened in those areas as well, and we understand and realize it was a mess for quite a long time.
But you expect everything to be done calendar 2018?
Oh yeah. Yep.
And any idea what the final cost is?
I think that was about a little over a $4 or $5 million, right around $4 or $5 million project.
And how much is this? I know you get a large chunk from Washington and
so
Albany.
The city itself is on the hook for about 5% of that.
So what, 300, 400,000? No, I'm not doing my math right.
I was going to say your math's different than mine, but
what's you're thinking 200,000? You thinking lower or higher?
Didn't tell me there was going to be a math quiz. I can do it longhand.
Okay, you can do it.
So yeah, $5 million project, 500, but yeah, 250,000, 300,000 by the time we get done. And of course, some of that comes out of sewer fund or water fund when there are water improvements or sewer improvements. They come out of those particular funds.
And you can utilize those towards that.
Correct.
So two viewer questions. One is, I'm sure one that you have heard at least 56 times in the last 2 days, and that's the turn onto the loop road going into Wegmans, which used to be 2 lanes wide. You now have a bike path in there.
Correct.
And clearly people pulling into Wegmans become delayed and traffic is backing up into the intersection.
Right.
Any plans to fix that? Or
well, the plan was we did field a lot of concerns about that through the summertime. The issue that we had through the summertime was with so much construction going on and traffic patterns being so disrupted between Lincoln Street and the Genesee Street project and everything else going on, it was potentially too premature to decide what the actual cause of that problem was. Now that traffic patterns are getting back to a little bit more normal, we'll take a look at that again.
Because I did today on my way downtown, and it's still backing up into Genesee. Yeah. Which I'm sure you that's what you don't need.
Right, right. And you know, honestly, lately we haven't heard much, or I haven't heard much about that. Definitely during the summertime, again, compounded with all that construction, it was a problem. But we definitely will end up looking into that and seeing. I think there's a few things we might be able to easily do, just with some signage and things like that, to get that flow moving. So
the speaking of flow, what used to stop you in downtown was potholes and jerky stops to avoid bumps and whatnot. Now it's traffic lights. So 3 traffic lights from Wegmans up to the other end of the loop road.
The age-old problem.
It is the age-old problem. So what is the city going to do to fix that? Because you are literally, that has now become, there is no traffic flow. Right. It is literally, it's almost if somebody went out there and mistimed the lights, which I know the city did not do.
Right.
But How do you fix
and
it?
as you know from your time with the city, those things, a lot of them come back to New York State DOT.
I do, but
how things function.
I mean, you just said the $5 million, but if $5 million is to make the roadway smooth and traffic flow better, but if it only leads to people trying to jump through lights, which is
Right.
going to lead to accidents.
Right.
So how does the city fix those three?
Well, those are things, and I can tell you that we do communicate with the state DOT on a regular basis. So those are things that, again, a problem that's been around for a long time that I'm aware of.
So why
and we try
wasn't
to deal
it
with
part of the design work for the $5 million project?
Well,
Fixing those, at least that, so that you have some flow.
I don't have a great answer to that.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Okay.
That, you know, when we do the project was based on essentially the road surface and,
Right.
and things like that. But there's things that we can look at.
Last item on just Genesee Street. Initially, there was some complaints and some head scratching on the back end parking. In hearing you were nice enough to go to Boyle Center with me about, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and the mayor, having heard him as well. While there was some thought that you might go to the state again to say, listen, we got to relook at back end parking. At this stage, you all think it's working?
And I know not everybody's going to agree with that statement, but at this point, it seems as though, given some time and given some ability to practice it and get used to it, there seems to be a fair amount of compliance, actually a majority of compliance in there. It's getting better. And I haven't actually heard a lot of complaints recently about it.
Did you, I know at some point the city council had to change the rules in regards to that you can't drive into spots. Some people are still doing that.
Yeah, well, we're still working on that, the actual legal aspect of
legislation for that.
And one of the issues is that essentially to do that, you've got to cross a double yellow line. And really, it's not as big a problem pulling into the space as it is getting back out of it at
Well,
this
that's
point.
what I'm saying, yeah.
And it really does create a traffic hazard downtown when people are trying to back out of those spaces if they pull into them at this point.
So one of your other, just a side note on the parking, I think you and I talked, I said we should go back to whenever they redid Genesee Street the last time and they went from parallel to drive, and I'm sure there were letters to the editor and whoever was the poor mayor and councilors at that time, most likely got that, and then it moved on. So what is being done on, like I said, we want to go through some capital projects. You've got a project going on at York Street. What's that?
York Street right now is finishing up what started life as a North Street water main replacement. The water main in that area was extremely old and had been the point of numerous water main failures that for whatever reason always seem to happen on holidays or weekends and evenings, and those water main breaks, while they disrupt the local community and residences, also had a dramatic impact on the productivity of Nucor Steel and Hammond and Irving.
Industrial users.
Right, and when those folks, when those users are out of water and they have to shut down, has a dramatic impact on them
Was it a
financially.
fire safety issue as well?
Well, sure, it's always a fire safety issue when that happens, but you know, so we looked at it for a number of different reasons, but the bottom line was it was an old line, undersized for what needed to be there, and it was increased to a 12-inch line all the way to the city line. Creates some redundancy for Nucor Steel so that when something happens, they can still continue to do production.
So where are you on that project now? Is that almost done?
So the North Street section is done, and that was a little bit of a challenge because we had to deal with the railway, and the railway doesn't like to be out of business, and we have to work around that, so they had to tunnel under the rail.
And they're also not the most cooperative group.
It can be a challenge dealing with the railroad. Not that Finger Lakes Railway isn't a good partner for us.
No, I'm saying, but railroads
just
traditionally.
in general, yeah. And so now they're working their way down York Street to just across from Nucor Steel. And
Is that all of the city project, or are you getting reimbursed for any of that?
That entire thing is a city project.
About how much will it cost?
That was around $2 million.
So you bond for that, and
Yep.
you spread that over a 15, 20-year period,
Right,
25-year.
and that started out at around a $600,000 project, but as we started to investigate the line further and further and continued to have problems, during that planning phase, it grew to what it is. But that'll button up that area. The York Street water line had been replaced during the York Street reconstruction several years ago, except for that upper part by North Street.
You're also doing the North Division Street Bridge.
Correct.
You started that during the summer. What are you doing there?
Complete replacement and realignment of the bridge.
So you're realigning the southern part of the bridge?
Correct, yes.
And that will spill out where?
It will, basically what will happen with that entire intersection, it'll have a little bit of a rework, and it's, everybody that's gone through there for years knows it's, you know, it's got that little S to it, or dog leg, whatever you'd want to call it. And while that won't be entirely gone, it'll straighten it out quite a bit and help traffic flow in that area.
What's your timeline on that?
We're hoping by the end of this coming summer that's all wrapped up.
Oh, so this will go into the new year?
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
will it impact Falcon Park and all that you do there? I know
probably it did a little bit at the end of the season.
Well, they started earlier, because when you were on last, you had thought that they would not start till the end of the season.
Right, and they got right on that job. They were doing a fantastic job. Things were moving along at a brisk pace. And fall came, and the fall rains came and never subsided. So we had a little bit of an issue with water flow, right? Because we have to maintain the level of the lake. So the construction crews weren't able to do as much work as they had planned on.
But your plan is still that they will finish it by September of 19?
Yes. Yep.
Again, where's how much is that costing?
Off the top of my head, I don't have that number.
Is that all city money, though?
There's again a federal share, state share on that one, so we're in good shape on that.
So
that one's actually closer to 100% financed. Yes.
So you've got all of these projects that we talked about. Where are you in your road program? Because you're still doing some street work. Yeah,
and you know, we got a little bit of a late start on road program this year, but I don't think anybody minded so much this year as they have in years past. Just because there was so much construction.
So you think some of it will go into 19?
Yeah, normally there's a little bit of a carryover. And one of the issues that we had with road program this year was that our construction contractors were so busy with other projects, city projects, other municipal projects in the area, that we were seeing a real problem with our contractors getting the labor help that they needed and things like that. So we had a few issues.
So you also decided on all of this, you should also do something at Falcon Park.
Yeah, yeah.
So what are you doing?
So Falcon Park is going to get a little bit of a facelift here, and we've got a couple different things going on through the efforts of Senator DeFrancisco. He had got us some money to replace the lighting at Falcon Park, so that project is actually underway. There's also some money from DeFrancisco for updating the clubhouses and things like that, and that'll happen also. It's an ongoing process right at the moment, but the big project is thanks to the new partnership we have with Keega Community College, and we're going to be doing several upgrades, the most significant of which is replacing the field with synthetic turf.
So you've started already. You literally had a groundbreaking 2 weeks ago, 2 Mondays, I think it was 2 Mondays ago.
It might be 3 now.
3, and they were starting that morning.
It is going gangbusters. The contractor is doing very well. I actually, just before this session with you here, that's where I came in from, another construction meeting there. Contractor is on schedule, if not maybe a little bit ahead of schedule. So we're optimistic that we'll get things done.
So how much will it cost overall for the reconstruction of just the field? And the light, the project you're doing with the college, how much will that cost?
We're looking at about a $2.1 million project.
And then those bonds, which you've bonded for, will be paid for through rental payments from the college?
Correct.
How about maintenance and items like that?
And that's included in that rental payment from the college. So some of the things that we'll need to do, again, going from a 3-month facility to a 9 or 10-month facility, will be a little bit more work for our city workforce, but those were all anticipated and accounted for.
So the city will have to pick up some things by way of operational, but you're also going to have a 365-day operation now.
Correct.
Where you were only, what, 45, 50 games?
Yeah.
50 days.
Right, right. So essentially 3 months out of the year.
So when do you hope to have this completed?
We're hoping for substantial, some really significant completion before the weather really gets bad, although today that may not sound like a
I know, I looked out my window and then I walked across campus here, so.
But so the contractor's moving very quickly on the project. You know, there's things, and there was some concern in the beginning that just a few years ago there were some other upgrades done to Falcon Park, most notably drainage, but those things that happened several years ago, that work's being retained.
And I know the college came to you and you worked out this deal with that, but do you see this benefiting the city of Auburn itself, separate from the college? Yes,
it's going to have benefits. You know, it's easy to look at the agreement with the college or some other avenues the college had explored and say, wow, this is a really big benefit to the college, and it is, I think. It's a benefit to
$3 million versus $14 million.
Correct. That's a huge benefit to the college, I think.
The benefit 14 if they did something up here.
Right.
Okay.
But the benefit to the city is, again, we'll have a facility that's available to the community almost year-round for a number of things. Granted, the college will be using it and we'll use it, but you know, the high school team still uses it. We get little league teams that utilize it, and I'm sure now with the setup able to accommodate soccer and lacrosse and things like that, that overall it'll become more of a community asset than it's been in the past.
So with all these projects, you're done, you've got stuff on the books now, and you'll have some stuff going into 19 with the bridge and with Falcon Park. Are you done with capital projects for the time being? What do you got on the books?
No, so we are hopeful that when the North Division Street Bridge project wraps up, that we'll be getting right into the State Street Bridge project over the
by Curley's?
By Curley's, correct.
So I don't want to leave baseball for a second, because I know you're also, and I know this is your favorite part of your job, you're also in charge of the double days. Well, you have a staff to do it. It's your responsibility because of agreements that are in there. So did the double days, we're about a month and a half past their, well, almost 2 months now. Did they turn a profit for the year?
No, we haven't turned a profit for the year, but we had some capital expenditures down there. So again, the last couple years has been trying to reorganize a little bit, recapture a few things, and come up with a good business plan that works. And along the way, there's been improvements to things.
So before the end of the season, there was a large citizen story about attendance, part of it driven by your own staff who said, why aren't people coming down? All right, so let me ask you, why aren't people coming down?
Well, I don't know that I actually have the answer to that particular question. But I can tell you that in conversations with other teams, like in the New York Penn League, this season everybody saw a decrease in attendance.
So this is a New York Penn problem?
Yeah, I think it's a minor league baseball issue.
Are you concerned about this in the long term?
I think that some of the things that our management teams got going on down there are going to be things that are going to help us along. The arrangement with Cayuga Community College, I think, is going to potentially help with that. A little bit of diversification of what goes on at Falcon Park, more exposure for Falcon Park just in general. There's just going to be so many people, so many more people exposed to Falcon Park locally and regionally, that I'm hoping and optimistic that that's going to drive up some attendance.
The worry has always been if the New York Penn League isn't happy with the way the double days are, they'll either buy you out or take away the franchise. Do you think they're happy now, and are they happy with what you're doing with turf?
I think that generally speaking, they've been really happy. The group that we've got working on things down there, they're trying a lot of new things. They're trying new stuff that nobody else in the league has been working on. So I'm encouraged when I go to meetings of the New York Penn League to see the reaction to some of the different things that they're trying, some of the partnerships that they've created, for instance, with Cayuga Community College. And no, the reality of it is, I think the New York Penn League is, they're realistic to some extent in the expectations, and they understand the challenges that are facing minor league baseball in small communities.
So have you signed a new agreement or a renewal agreement with the Nationals?
Yes.
And does the changeover for the Chiefs to the Mets have any impact? Because I know they were a Nationals
No,
Drew?
we watch that very closely, but no, it doesn't have a local impact on us here.
So the other item that's going on in downtown right now is this $10 million downtown revitalization initiative.
Yep.
Do you have any role in that?
No,
than
I'm aware of what goes on in it, and we have some staff people that work along with the state and Bergman Associates, which is the state-appointed group that
you may hire them, but the state has directed that these are your choices.
Yes, this is your choice.
So there are a number of projects there. There's one specifically I wanted to ask you about. What is your top priority right now for the use of that $10 million? You know where I'm going with this.
Well, I think the top priority is to see what will have the greatest impact locally, really. You know, that's...
So one of the items is possibly a fire station. This has been something you and predecessors have been trying to get out of Market Street for years.
Correct.
So the big question is, there has been some thought that some of the DRI money could go towards that. Would you see that as a city priority? I know it doesn't specifically benefit one or more not-for-profits or businesses, but that is a general taxpayer benefit.
Correct.
Floats all boats.
So for a comparison, I think that roughly half of Cortland's DRI is going towards a Main Street, basically taking what they had as a one-way Main Street and making it a two-way Main Street.
So it's a capital.
So it was a capital investment.
So you see this as a priority.
And absolutely, and of course you know my background, but it's bigger than that, and I've always said
and I'm not
that
asking you as a former chief. No,
Right.
I'm asking you as a city manager, where you have tried to get funds before. This is roughly how much would a new fire station cost?
If you use round numbers, say $8 to $10 million.
That's a big lift. And then when you got a
Absolutely.
2% tax cap,
Correct.
you can only do so much on bonding limits. This is a pot of money that could be accessible.
Correct.
I'm not making the case for it. I'm just saying it's the reality.
Correct.
You have gone, though, far enough down the road that you think you would locate the station where?
What's referred to as Seminary Commons.
So where liquor store is over by Willard Chapel.
Correct.
If this took up a big percentage of the DRI, do you think that's something the city council would be supportive of?
I certainly am not going to speak for the city council. I would hope that they'd be supportive of it, and I guess I'd also go back to your statement of a big chunk. I'm not sure, you know, right now we're looking at roughly, potentially $1 million of it would make that project, along with some other grant funds that we've got, could make that project more realistic for us financially. And the thing that I've always come back to with that project is that there's a lot of different facets to that project, and one thing that I don't want folks to forget is that we really do have a very nice building in the current fire station. It's just its ability to house very, very extremely heavy fire trucks in an antiquated building is a problem. But that building,
where everything's gotten miniaturized in life, fire equipment gets heavier.
Right, right.
So,
but that building has a lot of life left ahead of it in downtown, and I think it's pretty exciting to think about what the possibilities could be for that building.
so really 3 really quick questions because we got some viewer questions. Leaf pickup. You had trucks out yesterday. They're picking up this week, or they picked up yesterday.
Right.
There's no pickup next week.
There's no
holiday.
pickup scheduled next week because of the holiday. 120 tons of leaves picked up yesterday, just so you know.
Yeah, I think half of them were in front of my house. You're supposed to use brown bags.
Correct.
The viewer said at Walmart and Lowe's they are out. That's what we were told. I do not know if that is true. Home Depot has a small stack still left. What should people do if there are not brown bags?
If you don't have brown bags, we have a couple things. First of all, you can put the leaves in a trash container, like a trash can, and the crews will come by and they'll dump that can and take care of it. We want to stress not to put them in plastic bags. We won't take them in plastic bags because what happens when they go to the landfill is that we have to individually open each bag and shake them out. That's a DEC requirement. So we can't do that. And we always suggest doing the really, really conscientious thing and grinding them in, either save them, mulch them, or...
But do not put them in the road because you don't want plugging up your...
Please don't put them in the road because they clog up our catch basins and lead to street flooding and basement flooding and things like that. So.
Our guest has been City Manager Jeff DYGERT. We didn't cover city finances, executive sessions, or a couple of others, but we're going to have you back in the spring.
Okay.
And by that time, you might even know more on the fire house.
Yes,
All
we
right.
should have.
Our guest has been City Manager Jeff DYGERT. We want to thank him for giving us city update on what is going on. We'll be back in a moment with our first post-election beyond the front page, excuse me, featuring a discussion of Hospice of the Finger Lakes and changes that are going on with that organization. Next week on Inside Government, Cuyahoga County Sheriff David Gould will join us to discuss his 3 terms as sheriff and what his future holds. In the coming weeks, we hope to bring you, or we will be bringing you, Senator John DeFrancisco, who is retiring at the end of the year, to give us an exit interview, as well as Auburn Superintendent of Schools Jeff Perazola discussing the proposed capital bond referendum scheduled for January 8th. Our final show of the season will be the annual visit that we have each year from Santa on November 29th. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know that unlike our forums, you can always send us your ideas for guests or questions to Inside Government or Beyond the Front Page. You can do that at cozguytho@aol.com or mail them into Inside Government, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cuyahoga Community College. We hope you will stick with us in just a moment for Beyond the Front Page. Otherwise, have a good night and a great week.